what Bob, who's a financial expert, curiously left out of his comments was that, yes, we have a low tax rate, but we have extraordinarily high assessments. And that results in what people actually have to out of pocket. But that's another discussion. But getting back to, I want to step back, and I apologize because I probably missed this portion of the earlier discussion. But Article 2, which is the site, I'm very troubled by the fact that this article has appeared in the warrant, and I'll tell you why. I don't know how many of my colleagues are aware of the fact that on June 5th in 1990, that was the date of that year's special town meeting. And in that, Article 2, which was supported overwhelmingly, the vote was 159 yes to 6 no's. And if I may, I'd like to read from what Article 2 said. And I'm jumping into this. It says they're asking for enabling authority to purchase the site Route 340, Route 6, and I'm quoting from the article. For the purpose of acquiring the site for the potential construction of a police station and or fire station and for other lawful future town uses. Now, unless you want to engage in a Bill Clinton discussion of what the word is means, is the reason that the site has appeared, and KP Law has to answer this. I've asked our land use council to inform me about KP Law's, how we got to Article 2 appearing, because are they questioning the term other lawful use? I can't imagine that in plain language that a construction of a DPW facility is somehow a different lawful use from a fire and police facility. So having said that, that's one hurdle that has to be overcome by the voters going forward. And getting back to what Sue said, fast forward this morning, I agree with her. There's a real trust gap, and I think that the way the trust gap can be narrowed is to show the public through continuing and future discussions about why the needs are what they are, and remind everyone that the open houses at the current DPW site, and I'm being polite, were poorly attended by the public. I stood there on 2 different occasions when no more than 2 people showed up to look at the current facility. So I think we have to elucidate the need, what is now the functioning of the existing facility and the lackings thereof, and also having a discussion about, as Sue said, what the peer review reveals, how these numbers were arrived at. And I do believe, like Sue said, all of us who have had personal construction projects often have to eliminate things because they're unaffordable. It's a little different for the municipality because through taxation, they can become affordable. But I'm confident that an ad hoc committee could find ways without diminishing the utility of the structure, whatever that structure ends up being, could be at a lower cost than $35 million. I have no idea how much that could be reduced, but I also would remind members of the public that unlike a personal construction, there are federal and state mandates, and particularly if you look at the Commonwealth's building code, there are many things that must be in this that provide for air quality for the staff, that requires expensive air handling systems, and the list goes on. So I think that we are obligated to open this discussion through future conversations with the public with an eye toward making the voting public have the necessary information to hopefully have a rational and well-reasoned opinion about voting on the article, which combines the engineering costs and the construction costs. I apologize for my wordiness, but that's how I feel. Thank you.
That's okay. All good. I didn't really understand your point regarding the Article 2. KP Law reviewed this language, so how can we support Bob in getting an answer to his question or concern?
So KP Law actually wrote that article. That was what was recommended to us by them in terms of what goes forward. We did change the title. That was an amenable change that obviously before the warrant was closed. We did change the title at the Select Board's request and at KP Law's approval, if you all remember. But I think if there were to be a change on it, we would probably need to engage in some deeper discussions with.
Okay, so I'm going to let Bob work with Darren and Kelly on that. And
Madam Chair.
Yeah, Darren?
I agree. I concur with Kelly. I think because of the nature of these recommendations that this conversation would be held in executive session. It would have to be, I think, because of the implications. If we were to change this, it would have to be because it's legal advice related to this issue from KP Law. That's as far as I would go. I say if we want to discuss this further, I would say we would want to hold an executive session and invite KP Law into that conversation to kind of discuss those outcomes.
All right, so that's a can of worms that we have time to explore, but we're not going to explore it at this meeting.
Madam Chair, I have a question. I am under the understanding that we have to vote on this special town meeting warrant as it exists and as advertised.
Yes,
Okay.
it's frozen.
And our only decision point is whether, because we have a different proposal to bring forward, whether we indefinitely postpone something on this warrant and then
Correct.
create a new one for the annual town meeting warrant.
Correct.
I'm saying that more for the public
Oh,
than for us.
sorry.
So, yeah, so I wanted to make that clear.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Darren first, then Kelly.
Sorry. I think you could make the decision based on the discussion in executive session whether or not you would definitely postpone this and not put it on the next warrant. That's part of the conversation I think you could have. It would be your decision as select board to do that. You wouldn't necessarily, but that is probably a very deep conversation that you'll need to have with.
I didn't know this was an issue until Bob's raised some concerns, and so I feel like Bob needs to work with Darren and work with KP Law to figure out if these concerns are valid.
Yes.
I feel like Bob has a receptivity he has questions. He's not making declarations. He's done research. He has gone back into the records. He has questions and concerns, but this is not a select board concern yet until research has been explored. Kelly, you wanted to make a comment?
I just wanted to add to Vice Chair Arison's comments that the other decision point that the select board can make is if there were amendments to motions that you all wanted to make that were, I think you need to use your judgment, but if you think they would be within the scope of the article as the moderator might deem appropriate, then you could do that. For instance, if the borrowing authorization for Truro Central School was going down, that would likely be within the scope of the article to bring a smaller dollar value. We're talking about that dollar value going up, and so that's why we're indefinitely postponing and bringing forth a new article. So I just wanted to add that because there are some places where you have some flexibility in terms of amending your motion, depending on what the conversation today entails.
Well, until KP Law has had an opportunity to hear Bob's concerns, I don't think we should make a decision about indefinitely postponing, even though Bob's concerns are valid and should be explored. Yeah, John?
Just for the public and myself, this has been raised with them, Bob's concerns prior. They've gone through this already, right?
Yeah, but I don't have an opinion in front of me, but you're right, John. We've been going around
I know,
on
I just
this
want
one.
to make sure that's understood.
Yes, thank you for adding that to the record. So, Bob, we have a plan?
Madam Chair, I think we do have a plan.
Okay.
And if I may, just going back to my comments about the background of this site, I'm very much afraid that without the discussions that all my colleagues have advocated for, I think it's great. Part of this, I'm afraid that as Article 2 is worded, that's an avenue for opponents of this project to deny the site, which was unanimously voted for by this board. And getting back to the history, when I mentioned the vote on town meeting floor, that also obviously had to be a ballot question. And the ballot question passed 377 to 277. And I think that KP Law may, in its defense, say to us that they want to make sure that no one challenges the term lawful use. I can't think of anything else, but I welcome having an executive session to discuss this with KP Law. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's what we'll do. So we'll start I can see Kelly and Darren taking notes, so we'll start the process for that.